Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the session on scaling today. Um, we have with us today Mr. Anish Anthony. He is General Manager and founding team member of MyGate. Welcome, Anish, to the session. Thanks for accepting our request to be a speaker. Welcome.
Hey, thanks a lot,
Yeah,
Shankar.
thanks.
Great to be
Yep.
here.
It's a pleasure always, Anish. We have with us Mr. Sandeep, who is co-founder at Onmo. Welcome, Sandeep. Thanks again, for accepting the request. Welcome.
Thank you, Shankar.
Thank you. And we have with us Mr. Naveen, who is CEO AICT Hub, who would be the moderator for the session today, and take you through the heated argument or in the total session today. Welcome, Naveen. Thanks again.
Thanks, Shankar.
Yeah, over to you, Naveen. Thank you.
Okay, great. Welcome everyone. Thanks for attending the session on Blitzscaling, the art and science of lightning fast business growth. We have with us Anish Anthony and Sanish Bhamiredi from MyGate and Add-on More respectively. So before we get started, I'll just broadly explain the structure of this talk or the webinar. So we're going to have roughly 40 minutes, like the Q&A between me and the speakers. And we've dedicated approximately 20 minutes for the Q&A. But please feel free to start posting your questions on the chat window. And once we get through the first session, we can take the Q&As. Okay, Sandeep is the co-founder of Add-on Mo and also Forbes 30 under 30. He did is his Bachelor of Technology in Computer Science from IIT Indore. Sandeep, please share your journey so far with us.
So thank you, Naveen. Really nice being here today. So I'm a 2014 pass out from IIT Indore. I did my computer science. Post that, I worked in Microsoft for about 3 years, and that's where I met my co-founder Shravan. Though he's 7 years older than I am, he looks half my age, I suppose. So we had common interests, mostly outside work, but we decided to start a company uh, because we have fantastic chemistry, and also we really loved the idea that that kind of hit us one day. We are one of the first digital out of home startups out of Hyderabad, and one of the largest digital out of home startups in India currently. So we started with taxi-top advertising displays. Some of you might have seen them on the roads in Hyderabad and Mumbai and few other places. But obviously, pandemic hit us hard. We're a COVID negative company, and then during the pandemic, we had to shut our vertical and then shut the cap top vertical for a little bit, at least pause it for now, and then we kind of reinvented ourselves, restarted a new vertical, and now scaling that up. As far as funding, we've raised about $4 million till date, both overseas and locally. And we are looking to do a Series A sometime this year. So that's where we are currently.
Thanks, Sandeep. Welcome. And we have Anish, who is one of the members of the founding team at MyGate. He was an Air Force Wing Commander, a Kargil veteran, and a great supporter of the Hub ecosystem. Anish, please share your journey from Air Force to MyGate.
Hi, Naveen. Thanks a lot for having me on the webinar. I spent around 20 years in the Air Force. I was a helicopter pilot, and subsequently, I was in the drone program for the Air Force. Then I did a couple of 3 years as R&D for India's weaponized drone program. I was an instructor in Air Force, and subsequently we started up MyGate. Um, Fundamentally, right, we were used to a lot of security in our cantonments and Air Force stations where we stayed. When we moved out into the civil street, we expected the same kind of ecosystem and security that we got in our cantonments or military stations. Um, that was one driving force for us to start up something called MyGate, something as big as MyGate, right? The second thing was, Vijay, our CEO and founder, always keeps asking, right? We were doing so well for ourselves in the Air Force, right? What are we doing for others? So right now we have a team of almost 1,200 team members spreading across 21 cities in India. We started off in 2016. In 2017, we were securing just around 10,000 homes. Right now, that number has swollen up to almost 30 lakh homes in a span of 3 years. So that is the rate at which we've been scaling up. Fundamentally, the core comes back from the same thing. That is what drives our organization, right? How are we adding value to our clients? How are we adding value? How are we providing security to the residents of our gated communities? And how did we use our existing skills, right, to enrich the residential ecosystem outside on the civvy street, right? There was one form of patriotism that we had when we were in the Air Force, and there is another sort of patriotism where we're bringing our skill sets and helping in creating an organization, providing a career for almost 1,200 people right now, and providing our expertise of security to the gated communities outside. So that's predominantly where MyGate is. We've raised over our journey over the past 4 years, we've raised somewhere close to around 70 million USD. We're a Series B funded company, right? And so that's predominantly our journey. As far as the COVID is concerned, yes, COVID impacted all of us, but we regrouped, realigned, and we reattacked pretty efficiently. We opened up a new thread. We were early on only into the security management space. We opened out a new thread of community management space, right? And that is doing phenomenally well. From almost, we are facilitating everything end to end in community management, which includes their paying of the bills and stuff like that. So from almost negligible invoices, today our clients, our residents, are raising invoices worth 100 crore on our platform on a monthly basis. So that is the scale that we've hit during the COVID. I mean, pre-COVID and post-COVID, that is what the change it has brought to us.
Even before that, I think 3 years, there's this 300x growth. So that is amazing. Hopefully you can share some of your experiences with us today.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah.
So we'll start with what generally is scaling, and then we can go into the specific topic of blitz scaling. Anish, this is for you. How do you classify different stages of a startup? And what are the markers that you believe are critical to identify these stages? I'll share the slide, but you can.
Yeah, right. So from our experience, right, for what we can see is from a 30,000 feet view, right? If you take an overview, right, every life cycle of a startup has around 4 or 5 phases. The first phase is the ideation phase, right? The second phase is where you develop your product and you develop your GTM, right? You develop your product and your GTM.
Got it.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. So second phase is where you develop your product and your GTM and you get it, right? The next phase is the growth phase, right? And the last phase is the exit phase. So I think we will predominantly be focusing in this talk about the scaling part of it, or the blitz scaling part of it, which is a growth phase of the organization. But I would like to take a few minutes here to try and impress on the audience the importance of the ideation phase, right? Ideation phase is probably the most important phase in your entire journey, right? So to give you an example of how much emphasis that the founders of MyGate put on ideation, right? The founders, each of them had almost 15, 20 years of experience across organization like the Indian Air Force when it comes to bringing the security element to it. Organizations like Goldman Sachs, like, like Google, like Oracle, 15, 20 years and senior leadership positions in all of these organizations, right? That was almost 100 years of experience on the table when we were ideating. And we ideated for almost, 4 months. And when I talk of ideation, I don't mean they just sit in a room and, yes, that is, and brainstorm. That is important. If I have to give you an example, right? Vijay actually did the job of a security guard. In fact, all the founders did the job of a security guard almost for 3 months to understand what exactly happens at the gate, right? That is a part of your ideation, right? You need to get your hands dirty. And over the journey of your entire life cycle of a startup, you need to keep them dirty. At no point of time you can say that, okay, I'm not connected to the field, or I'm not connected to my client base. Right? What it also does is that it helps you identify, and it preps you for your next stages to come, right? So when I talk about ideation, there's a lot of things that go into it. First is you identify your pain point, right? Then you identify what is the scale of that pain, right? Then you identify the solution that you create to alleviate the pain. You productize or you processize the solution. You make it into a product, right? Or a process of the solution. Then you identify is, will you be able to monetize that? Even if you're able to monetize that, how does your unit economics work, right? Are you spending $100, but people are willing to pay only $10 for your product? In which case, does it actually make sense for you to exist or to continue with your journey, right? You need to get your co-founder composition right. So all of this comes in the ideation phase. You need to talk to a lot of peers. You need to go and try and bounce your ideas off them. Try to talk to somebody who's already spent the journey before and try to understand how did they ideate? What are the things that they learned? Right? So ideation, if you ask me, is one of the most important phases in the life cycle of a startup. Right? You cannot create a product and then go back and find a market for it. And then you realize that, or go back and find that it's costing me more than people are willing to spend on it. So there is a saying in the Air Force, right? Your body never goes to a place where your mind has not gone before, right? So whenever we plan for a sortie in the Air Force, right, you run it through your mind multiple amount of times, right? That is very much in sync what you need to do with the startup also. You need to run through various scenarios. That is only then you will definitely face a lot of challenges. There's no doubt about that. But you're better prepared to handle those challenges because you've gone through that ideation phase. Right? Coming to the growth scale, right? Coming to the scale of the growth that you experience, right? The blitzscaling itself has got many pieces in this, and each of these cells. Can you just move to the next slide? Yeah, right. So blitzscaling itself has got many portions into it, right? So if I have to give names to those stages, right? One is ideation, like we already talked about. Next is the minimum viable product and the go-to-market phase, right? Next is the growth phase, where actually blitzscaling kicks in, right? You open, and then your company gets bigger and bigger, and so on and so forth, right? So if you look at from the people's perspective, in the ideation phase, you're in single digits, or maximum you go up to 15 people structure sort of a thing. Now, all of these are absolutely overviews. They're not. They are no way a template. There is no one fixed template that anybody can follow. It's not like you throw in an idea, you throw in the money, and boom, it happens. No, it does not happen that way. Right? These are all very overview of what we're trying to talk about. Right? The people in the second stage is approximately 15 to 50, where you're getting your product right. So if you ask me about the ideation stage, right? From the product perspective, you're still ideating. You're building your prototype out of it, right? You're from the go-to-market stage, you're doing research. Or how do I go to this market? Is it a B2B? Is it a B2C? Is it a B2B2C? Right? How do I reach out to the market? Right? From the tech stage, in the ideation stage, I'm creating a product for the solution that I have in mind, which will alleviate my problem statement which people are facing. Right? That is where the tech is in this ideation stage. Right? The strategy belongs to the founders. The operations, the founders are still trying to find their way and find the research on where the founders are, and so on and so forth. Right? From the financing, accounting part of it, you're still bootstrapped. Right? From the HR perspective, you have to actually go ahead and pitch to a candidate. Please join my organization. It has such a bright future out there. Right? Because you need to get them to truly believe in your vision. Otherwise, it's not going. Otherwise, this stage itself is not going to take off to the next stage. Right? So these are some boxes that we've tried to fill along the way from our experience. Right? Of each stage, from these various threads, what are the typical aspects of each of these threads? Right? Growth comes where you kick off on this path, where between blitzscale becomes applicable when you're kicking off from your MVP GTM phase into your growth phase. Now you know that you have a working product. You know that you know how to go to the market, right? You've sorted your ops workflow out, both your deployment workflow and your CS part of it, customer service part of it, right? You have managed to convince investors to fund you so that you can kick off that growth, right? And you have a product which can be taken to the market and which will last you for a particular scale. That is when you kick off on your blitzscaling. If you're too early, you don't have a product, you hire a sales team, you're just burning and you burn out, right? If you're too late, right? Like again, we go back to Reid Hoffman, right? He says, if you're not ashamed of your product, you're too late, right? Of course, I mean, he is probably pulling it to the other extreme, right? but you shouldn't be pulling it to this extreme either, where you're creating or waiting for that perfect product, and your idea has already been exploited by somebody else.
Anish, can you put for each of these stages from my gate point of view, can you give like, let's say, number of houses? Where were you, if you can? That'll be useful.
Yeah, absolutely. So our ideation stage lasted for almost for 4 to 5 months, like I said, right? At that stage, we were just exploring, talking, engaging with all our stakeholders. It could be the guards, it could be the delivery boys, it could be the residents of the gated communities, it could be our prospective clients, it could be bouncing off people who've run these structures before, right? That was the first 5-6 stage. The MVP stage and the GTM stage lasted for us for almost a year, right? Which lasted almost for almost 9 months or so, right? And that is when we were bootstrapped. We had not raised our round at then. We were refining the product again and again and again, right? There are a lot of experiences where there was an experience, right? We created a product for the guard, security guard, which was a device which you located the security guard, right? After some time, you realize that you put in a SIM card, and the security guard had used up 5 GB of data in 3 months, right? So we go back and we see how come in 3 days, in 3 days, how can a security guard use up 5 GB of data? We went back in the night and we were doing our night round checks. We realized that he is watching YouTube and movies in the night when he's not on guard. So सारा data use up हो गया, आपका device down हो गया, right? Then we went and we put back we caged the application on the phone, right? Then he realized that he can take it out somewhere and then get it uncaged, right? So he will go to Singapore Bazaar or whatever it is and get it uncaged. Then you put a geofencing on top of it, right? So these are the practical problems that you will face when you get on the road. So we stabilized our product. We created a product which will give a superlative experience to our clients for almost for 6 to 8 months, right? And that is when we realized that now it is a stable product which clients are willing to pay for it, right? So we had approximately around 10,000 homes, like I said, that is our benchmark for starting our Blitzscale. We had around 10,000 homes. We had come somewhere around 60 to 70 communities. We had a stable product. We knew that the product works. We absolutely knew that we are adding a lot of value to the communities. We had managed to deliver on our promise to authenticate every person who's entering into a gated community, right? So we had got those compartments, all the leaks plugged, and then we said, okay, now let's Blitzscale, right? Now let's do a 10x every year, right? Year on year. Now, what does it take for me to do that 10x every year? That is when we started, right? Approximately a year and a half into our journey is where we started Blitzscaling, because we knew that the product was comfortable, the product was strong enough to take a scale from here going on forward.
Good. Sandeep, considering that Add-on-Mo is infrastructure heavy, do these stages resonate with your journey at Add-on-Mo, or how do they differ, if there are any differences? Can you please share your thoughts on this?
Sure, Naveen. I think two fundamental differences. One, obviously, we're not a SaaS offering where scalability is just more downloads. So we are a combination of both SaaS and hardware, I should say. And number two, we purely deal with businesses as our customer, right? So I think these are the two fundamental differences and also aspects where we underwent slightly different journey than what Anish and team kind of have taken. So especially in the ideation state, because our customers were brand managers, the brand heads, one, we wouldn't have the kind of access as someone like MyGate had towards the community members or the residents or the security guards. So one, we couldn't, our customer as such is not very accessible, right? We did speak to a couple of brand managers or 3-4 brand managers, but that wasn't really enough, right? So what we have done is we tried to create our own MVP. So for us, back then MVP costed almost 40 lakhs. So we tried to aggregate a network of about 50 cabs in the city. We had them running around the city for a significant amount of time before we could get any meaningful feedback from the customer. And as Anish rightly pointed out, that all of that is essentially our ideation stage. And that first phase of pilot failed, and then we had to go back, re-ideate and relaunch, right? Luckily, the second relaunch worked, and this time we actually went on to launch over 2,000 units, reaching almost and gaining almost 3 to 4 crore impressions every day. So that's how the Taxitop journey went by. So for us, the product market fit was found after we relaunched the second unit, second product with almost 300 units on road in Hyderabad. That's when we figured out, okay, we finally have got the product right. But then again, similar to the kind of experiences Anish and team had with the security guard, where they were almost using up data on movies. We used to have drivers who would take the device out, put it at their homes, just keep it on for the entire day, make money on top of that, or who would just not drive but still keep the device on to just make money. So there were a lot of these fraud checks that we had to introduce, but luckily most of that was done on the software side, so we could kind of iterate very fast on the product and then keep moving forward, right? So when I was mentioning that we were in the process of blitzscaling the Taxitop business vertical, and we had to kind of reinvent the entire structure from ideation towards the GTM, and then also now entering the blitzscaling journey. So the first time it almost took us about 1.5 years to kind of get from ideation to the, I would say, the inflection point. The second time it only took us 3 months. So one, partly because we have gone through that journey, we knew what to anticipate and what kind of support infrastructure we would need within the company, both on technology side, on the manpower side. And number two, we of course had the flexibility of the capital second time around, right? The second difference that I was pointing out to is essentially talking to business customers. We couldn't really go with a very substandard product. So because the kind of customers we dealt with, our early stage days were all small and medium businesses, which would kind of spend about 10, 15 lakhs per annum on advertising. And the kind of customers we're dealing now are likes of IKEA, Amazon. So these are the kind of customers where we can't afford to fail, right? So once we offend one customer or once we get a bad feedback from them, it's almost they're lost for life. So that's one fundamental difference between a consumer-oriented company and a business B2B company, where consumers are usually risk-taking, and they do accept a certain level of substandard product. And then businesses are very risk-averse. So once they have a bad taste with add-on, it's almost always that they never come back. So that way we had to be extra careful while presenting stuff to the customer, giving them portals, giving them a certain kind of experience. I think that's where we spent a lot of time kind of getting that tech part of it right now.
Got it. Can I say that since it's difficult to get very difficult to get a customer in B2B, or it takes long time, it also takes longer time to make them unhappy. Is that a correct statement? Or just one instant can completely screw up all the work that have been put into one customer?
Yeah, I mean, for us, thankfully, we still probably have a total space of 10,000 customers that we can capture in India meaningfully. But there are some companies like pharmaceutical startups who their universe of customers is just maybe 600 accounts, right? So every single account is so valuable to you that you can't afford to fail. So I think for them, they should approach the whole blitzscaling process a little differently. They should probably start with the least risky customer, probably the smallest customer, try and get it right, and then start growing bigger. So I think that's the only difference between a B2B and a B2C startup looking at blitzscaling.
Got it. Before, I just have one question, Anish. This is for you. How does the role of founder change as you go through different stages? I mean, first, everyone is doing everything in the company, right? Whatever needs to be done. And how does that change over time? Let's say when the scaling or product market fit happens.
So two things, right? One is that at every point of time, the founder has to have his hands dirty. That is a granted, right? Irrespective of the stage, if you're not if you're not emotionally, physically invested into the org, it doesn't work out. But having said that, yes, somewhere when you hit the growth stage, right? If you do not have a strong second line in place, you're not going to blitzscale. Right? You need to have a very strong second line in place to run the execution of the whole thing. Right? Directionally, initially you're ideating, you're forming the processes, you are also executing the processes, learning from those processes, learning from those mistakes, and refining your processes, right? But once you get your GTM phase, right, once you know that this is what I need to do over the next 1.5 2 years to get a 10x, right? At that point of time, if you are not investing in a great second line, you will not be able to scale up. There is only so much that you will be able to do, right? So you need to get into a little more of a mentorship role, right? Of getting your team ready. Like in MyGate, we don't have a manager concept. We have a mentor concept, right? The aim of the role of the manager is to mentor his team, right? It's period. It's just that. So if your team member is not being mentored by his manager, right, then there is something wrong. If the team member is not getting value from his manager, then it's something wrong. So which flows down to the founder as well. So as the organization keep growing, right, you need to keep adding layers under you and ensuring that those layers are competent enough, are invested enough, emotionally more so, take ownership of the company, right? You are not adding, I need to tell this more, I can't emphasize this enough. You are not adding employees. We do not add employees. We add team members. We add team members who take complete ownership of everything that they do, right? And the passion that you see in those meetings are absolutely phenomenal, right? So you go into a mentorship role, and at a certain point of time, you need to probably let go of your hand and allow your second line to make a few mistakes. Of course, you're always monitoring, right? Of course, you're always looking out, but certain amount of acceptance has to be there for, you can't have a zero error syndrome. You need to allow him to learn, right? Otherwise, you will never be able to scale it up to a huge organization. You need to think ahead. Uh, okay, so the same analogy that I go back, right? Your body can never be to a place where your mind has not already been. And if you're in a startup, right, your mind has to be 6 months to 1 year ahead of where your organization is right now. Right? So gradually you develop from somebody who's ideating and living by the day, right? You transform from a pirate, right, who will get anything to get the job done, to a navy, right, where you're strategizing. You're started thinking of your blue ocean strategy, like how do I take it big? How do I take it multi-city? How do I take it multinational, right? How do I add new threads? How do I open up new verticals? How do I acquire new businesses, right? But you cannot be doing that if you're stuck in execution. So when you get to your growth phase, or when you're getting to your blitzkrieging phase, you have to provide directional leadership rather than execution. And your executional leaders have to be totally empowered, emotionally involved, and have to have a sense of ownership for the organization. Your MNPS has to be somewhere at least above 45 or 50. If your MNPS is not that 45 50, then your team is not going to stick. So to give you an example, right, in the ops team of Hyderabad, we've not had a single attrition for the past 2 years. Not a single person has left the org, right? Unless you have that kind of an ownership by the team for the org, it is very difficult to blitzscale. That is the journey of the founder, in my opinion.
Sandeep, what are your thoughts on this?
So it's very similar to, I totally resonate with what Anish just told Naveen. I think the biggest thing for a founder, especially moving across stage 2 to stage 3 into blitzscaling, is we need to learn to let go, right? So initially, I totally remember we used to, even if for a small check of 1 lakh rupees or 1.5 lakh rupees, we used to go sit in the meetings, make sure that the sale would go through, and we would get the sale done. And all of that, as founders, it was very possible for us to do it in the early stage, right? So now, when even for the larger meetings where a single check could mean 15, 20 lakhs, we really resist the urge to kind of be there, go handhold the sales guy to get the meeting done, get it approved, right? So I think somewhere during the transition, you would learn to let go, and then you would realize that that's the only way you can create a second line of resources, as Anish mentioned, and that's the only way you can scale up meaningfully, right? So that I think is the biggest thing for a founder. And the second biggest problem is obviously hiring. So it's very, very, very difficult to find a good hire, especially when you are trying to take the company to the next level and you're trying to get the organizational heads. If unfortunately you can't find anyone within the organization, so each hire at that level, a wrong hire might almost cost you 50, 60 lakhs, right? Because it will take you almost 6 to 7 months to figure out what went wrong, who is not performing. And then by the time you remove that person, you lost valuable time and almost 30, 40 lakhs that you paid that person during that time, right? So every single hire is extremely crucial. And now it's almost like I spend 30%, 40% of my time just hiring, and then 30, 40% of it with partnerships, which would enable us to grow faster, and then about 20% of my time coaching. So I think that's how my role at Adonmo kind of transitioned over the last 2 years as we entered the blitzscaling once before.
Good. I've read somewhere that the ultimate goal of a founder is to become jobless, so that you have to hire the right people in the organization.
Literally 2 days ago, I was telling my founder that co-founder, that we should wake up every morning and just not know what to do. Like, we should be so jobless that we should not have anything to do within the organization.
I think hiring, I totally resonate with Sandeep. I think maybe I missed that out, right? I think 40% of the senior leadership today, right, spends on people management, right? Getting those hires, right? Getting those, your interview. I mean, people, I don't know how much time founders spend on interviewing the candidates right now, right? But that is probably your make or break. If you're not able to and getting that in your second line, right? Your second line has to pick the right guys. So the other day, I mean, Abhishek, who the co-founder, was very happy. I said, "Kya hua?" Kehta hai, I approved somebody and my second line disapproved it. He said, "Sir, आप इस बंदे को नहीं ले सकते because this is not right." So he says, now I'm very happy that at least my second line is hiring right. I know that they're going. I mean, it takes guts for somebody to tell to the founder, "Sir, I think that these are the flaws that this guy has. We should not be hiring him," after the founder agreed. So he's thinking more about the organization than the founder himself. So I think that is a place where I think eventually all of us as founders have to gravitate, where look beyond, look ahead of the company, look beyond of the company, and leave the execution part to the second line.
So one word answer from both of you. Anish, you go first. What did it mean by blitzscaling for MyGate? What is one, if you have to quote single metric for when you said this is what we're going to measure, and we say we have executed?
I think there are two matrices: people, process. Right? You hire the right people, manage the right people, and get the right processes for them to just follow.
I think my question is, what are the one metric that if you have to measure for MyGate in terms of blitzscaling, when you started blitzscaling, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the year, what was the single metric? Is the number of households?
Yes, and that was predominantly it. Predominantly it is what we want to do a 10x. 10x. Right? How do I do a 10x? The first year.
Year over year.
Year over year 10x. Yeah. So that is how do I do it, and everything else then work your way around that.
Got it. Sandeep, what is that metric that you're that you have in your mind for Adonmo?
So we have one metric on the supply side, Naveen, because we need inventory to display ads, and then one on the demand side. So on the supply side, it obviously the number of viewers, the kind of reach that we have. That's one metric. And on the demand side, definitely it's the number of happy customers that we have. So these two metrics are like God for us.
Sorry, follow-up question. How do you measure happiness of a customer?
So we usually look at is the customer willing to come back for his next advertising campaign. So if that happens, then he's happy.
Got it. Retention kind of a thing, basically. Okay. So I'm quoting Reid Hoffman directly. One of the rules he says is ignore your customers. The fundamental rule of customer service has long been the customer is always right. But for many blitzscalers, the key rule is provide whatever customer service you can, as long as it doesn't slow you down, and that may mean no service. Do you each agree with that or disagree?
I think I would disagree with Reid Hoffman on this, right? Customer centricity is like, if you see a bullseye, right? The center circle for us is customer centricity, is customer experience, right? Yes, I mean, he says at the cost of customer service, you should blitzscale. I don't think that is entirely true. yes, customer service is as important as your ability to grow. Otherwise, आपका churn will become so high, right, that it doesn't become viable anymore. Yes, maybe Reed might be right. Reed might be right where the customer doesn't have any other option, and you're adding a delta 4 effect to his present experience, right? If you're adding a delta 4 effect to his present experience and he has no other option, then probably you can follow that strategy, right? If today somebody had to go to the railway station and do a railway reservation, right? So even if your reservation website is patchy, he will not mind it. He will wait for a couple of hours and reserve his ticket when it comes back online, right? So if you're providing a delta 4 effect, then maybe Reed might be right, but that is not the right way to treat your customer in the first place, right? So maybe there I would probably disagree.
Sandeep, your thoughts?
So I agree with Anish, Naveen. So I would say it's very subjective to the company, especially if you take the examples like Oyo, who the whole company is centered around customer experience, right, when they started. But I feel somewhere down the line, as they scaled up, they totally ignored that part of it. I think that's in true sense what Reid Hoffman was talking about. But for a company like Oyo, doing that is catastrophic, right? And if you take, as I was mentioning earlier, the pharmaceutical space companies, or even for us, where we have extremely large B2B accounts. So it is very important that we keep customer satisfaction in mind. At the same time, I would kind of interpret that as don't listen to everything that your customer is saying. I wouldn't say don't ignore your customer, but so probably your customer wants 100 things, right? But it's up to your judgment. What parts of that 100 would be your common theme across customers, and what parts of that do you need to focus on and then get right before you move ahead, right? So I think that's pretty much the story for most B2B companies, and I wouldn't at all recommend totally ignoring your customers for sure.
Got it. And Anish, this is for you. When after you started blitzscaling, you would have had some learnings, right? What were the different stages of stages in the blitzscaling itself once you started targeting the 10x growth? And please share some metrics, numbers, experiences once you started that.
So I think, see, blitzscaling is not done one particular aspect, right? The entire organization has to scale up, right? You can't scale up on tech and let your sales force go, or you can't just hire people to sell and not focus on your operations, right? So if you go back to fundamentally the 4 pillars of an organization, right, which comes to probably the next slide. The 4 pillars of the organizations are: one is your tech, right? That's where it starts, right? You have your tech as one of your pillar. The second fundamental pillar is your sales BD marketing team, right? The third pillar is your operations team or your customer delight and growth. And the fourth is your support services, which is your Adam, HR, legal, finance, accounts, compliance, and so on and so forth. So every org is built on these 4 pillars. Now you might have subsets into that, right? And at every stage, one pillar is more important than the other, right? So in your initial stage, your tech, your ideation becomes very, very important. So if I'm spending equal bandwidth in maybe, in HR or in accounts vis-a-vis my tech, then I'm not doing justice. So that the tech pillar is the where then I'm focusing the most bandwidth on, right? Subsequently, it comes down to your operations, your sales team, right? But when it comes to blitzscaling, right, which is your third phase in your thing, right, that is when your entire organization has to keep pace, right? So if you're hiring, if you need to have a strong hiring team, right, you need to have specialists in their roles, right? You have to have HR operations, right? You have to have HR for hiring. You need to have somebody who's making your projections. The team that you're hiring, right, you need to train and you need to develop that team. At a certain point of time, we were like hiring 150 guys in a month, right? So that is suddenly we realized, oh shit, I need to hire so many guys in a month, right? So your entire, on the same hand, now you cannot ignore your operations. You set your processes. And how do you ensure that all of these newcomers follow those processes? You need to have an ops rigor, right? Retail, go back. Put that ops rigor back into your team, right? You need to have operations function heads, right? So that is where the blitzscaling starts. So you need to have the product becomes more richer. You start exploring new threads or new features for the product. You need to get your go to market absolutely right. You just can't hire sales guys and put them on the field. You need to give them a workflow to follow, right? You need to get automation into place. You cannot run on Google Sheets or you can't run on Excels anymore, right? You need to have an ERP system for a sales. You need to have an ERP system for the operations. You need to ensure that that workflows, going minute by minute, right? You have to ramp up your tech. You need to get engineering in place. You need to get R&D into place. You need to get analytics into place. Right? So all of this, the entire organization has to scale up. Then there's another layer. There's another color to it, right? At every time you grow around 4 to 5x, this is something that from personal experience, every time you go 4 to 5x, your previous processes become irrelevant, right? What is relevant at 400 customers, for example, is not relevant anymore at 1500 customers, right? So I might be able to manage on a Google Sheets or a spreadsheet at 400 customers, right? My pipeline, I can probably have my entire lead funnel, right? From the top of the funnel, which is your lead se leke niche closure tak, I can be able to manage it on a Excel sheet. But when I get to 1400 clients and I want to hit 10x, I need to get automation into that, right? So every time your org grows or your customer grows 4x, right, you need to redefine your entire processes, and this processes keeps continuing forever, right? So that is, I think, some of the changes that I have noticed, right? Every time 4x, please redefine. You cannot think too far ahead also. You cannot say, okay, I'll make a process. Every time you make a process, say, okay, the solution that I have developed for the problem that I'm facing right now, will it be relevant if I grow 10x, right? So I'm facing a challenge right now. I have developed a solution for that challenge. Is the solution going to be relevant for 10x or not? If it is not, then think more about it, because you can't keep redefining it every 6 months or every 2 months or every 3 months, right? You can't think beyond 10x. You can't make a permanent solution for quite a few blitzscaling problems, right? Because you will learn some lessons on your way from 1 to 10, which you might want to reevaluate and again put it back, feed it back into the system. Right? So I think these are some learnings that we have when we had in our blitzscaling journey.
Got it. Thanks, Anish. Sandeep, how are you? I know you've just started blitzscaling or just getting into blitzscaling mode, that right? What are some of the challenges that you had to overcome to just be ready for that? And in the organization, how are you preparing yourself to be ready for that stage?
So I think one of the biggest thing, it comes down to your organizational DNA, right? So as you enter the blitzscaling mode, you need more number of thought leaders. You need more number of people who are willing to own up their role and own up their responsibilities, right? So I think a big part of entering and starting blitzscaling is actually coaching your employees and also weeding out the wrong set of employees and getting in the right set of folks. So it's almost like you would be a kindergarten teacher once you in the early stage of blitzscaling, right? Almost always everyone comes back to you complaining. Everyone comes back to you telling 100 reasons why things are not working out. So I think that is as a founder, that was one of or rather that is one of our biggest challenges, really addressing and prepping up your teammates to really have that kind of a mindset to tolerate imperfection, right? So that to tolerate imperfection and bringing that into your DNA during the process of blitzscaling is the most key, because until that point you were running behind perfection. You didn't want any wastage of money. You didn't want any customers to be unhappy, and you would do everything possible to get that right. So, but having that mindset shift into that tolerating imperfection, I think that's one of our biggest challenges, and the challenge we are grappling with, especially the tech side, right? Because you almost always would want them to break down everything that they've built and then rebuild it from bottom up. And then with tech people, that's one of the biggest challenge. I would also say there, it's also the toughest job that they have internally, because for operations team, it's easy to slightly change their processes, start doing it a different slightly differently from tomorrow. But for the tech to rebuild the entire stack is something very, very difficult. And that's one of the pushback that we face constantly from the team, and then we try and spend a lot of time convincing them why this is important and why this would again happen again, but then still you're not sorry about it, right? And Number two, I think as you enter blitzscaling phase, as Anish mentioned, it's very important to have your KPIs set. Like, it's not just at a company level. At every role, every team member, literally every task that goes on onto the task board, it needs to have very defined KPIs, because it's very easy to get lost at that phase if you don't have KPIs, that you won't even realize that you're off track until it's too late, right? So we did spend a lot of time defining the KPIs and then tracking the KPIs, building the processes to kind of start tracking the KPIs, which was never done before. So I think these two are one of our biggest challenges and also learnings in this process.
Got it. Got it. I think I have few more questions, but I think we'll take some questions from the audience. I think the first one is from Subbareddy. Subbareddy, you wanna unmute yourself and ask the question? Shankar, can you?
Naveen, they have to, dear attendees, you can raise your hand, use the raise hand option to talk to the speakers directly.
Yeah.
Or,
Otherwise, I can ask the question myself. So
yes, please. Yeah.
I think while we're doing, Anish, this is for you. Is there any technology involved in providing security services, or did you develop your own platform?
So we developed our own platform. Firstly, I mean, to give you a direct answer, yes, we did develop our own platform, and yes, and technology has to be infused at every level, right? One question that we constantly ask ourselves is, how can I use technology to solve this problem? Right? How can I use technology to solve? If you're not going to use technology to solve any problem, then your scaling is going to be very difficult, right? At a particular scale, human intervention or manual intervention is just going to crack, right? So you need to identify technology to solve your problem from time to time. It could be managing your sales force, it could be managing your operations force, it could be managing your invoicing, it could be whatever the case may be. From an organization level, yes, you need to infuse technology. But at a MyGate level, yes, we definitely provide, it is an in-house technology that we've developed.
Got it. So this is from Mohan K. How does blitzing work with unit economics in mind to build a sustainable business? Blitzscaling runs the risk of essentially running a burn capital, and there is always a risk of reaching the tipping point of crossing over to the unsustainable path. Also, given present market condition, burning capital is not so easy. Burn capital is not so easily available. Sandeep or Anish?
So, Naveen, so I'm a very strong believer that unit economics should never go wrong in the process of blitzscaling, right? So you can overspend maybe for acquiring that customer. You can overspend in terms of giving incentives, which would allow your employees to be even more aggressive in terms of acquiring customers and building, acquiring supply. But unit economics I believe, should always make sense, unless your product is something which would have network effects kick in much later in the game, and then your unit economics would just take off, right? So for almost all products except for products like that, I personally believe unit economics should make sense, or at least you should have clear visibility towards profitability or positive unit economics. So, and especially now in the current environment, investors are very, very careful while just infusing funds like mad into companies where there's no clear path to profitability, or rather unit economics, clear paths to unit economics being positive anytime soon. So given the conditions, given the kind of shift in the ecosystem, and given the stress that people are emphasizing on profitability, it's important for you to at least have positive unit economics at reasonable scale, if not an entirely profitable company.
So let me just let me help you look at the question from a different angle, right? I mean, whoever has asked the question, right? Now assume that today you have shut down your entire client acquisition team, right? And also product enhancement or a feature enhancement or a product development team, right? How long will you take to break even? Right? Ask yourself that question, right? If you don't have an answer to that, that means you're just burning and you really don't know what's happening, right? as long as you're able to answer that question and the timeline is reasonable, I think you should go ahead and burn, right? But if you realize that I do not know that answer to that question, like if my client, I don't know, if I shut down my client acquisition team, if I shut down my tech team which is doing new developments, and if I shut down my onboarding team, right, not my customer service team, my client onboarding team, right, how long will it take for me operationally to break even, and when am I going to get into profitability? I have an answer to that, I can go ahead and burn. If I don't have an answer to that, you need to be really careful about what you're doing with your money.
Got it. The next question is from Vijay. Vijay, I've just unmuted yours. I've unmuted you. Can you ask your question?
Yeah. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. My question is like, imagine like there is some product and that can be launched in B2B as well as on B2C. So right now, for example, the product I am working on is a school ideation board where reaching the schools at this time is a very big challenge. I'm not able to get their appointment. So hardly in the last 2 months, I was able to get only one school. And right now the onboarding is going on. And what if I want to launch this product on B2B and B2C simultaneously as part of blitzscaling? So would that be a better move, or what exactly suggest?
Just a question. So when you say you have B2C and B2B, how many customers in each of these segments? Probably that will help them answer better.
See, in B2B, I have only one customer right now. Now, when it comes to B2C, I can launch it to wider audience. So through Facebook marketing and all those, where like personally, no need to go outside personally to any client. Now I have some X budget for the next 1 year. So what what do you suggest? Going in two channels simultaneously?
I think one is, Vijay, I think we need to understand yours a very specific case for a specific business that you're looking at, right? What you need to understand is a B2B scaling is totally different from B2C scaling, right?
Right.
If you're not able to make it to B2B, I mean, I'm assuming that you put in quite a good amount of substantial amount of time, effort, and energy into a B2B, right?
Right.
Typically, B2C is slightly more challenging than a B2B, right? You need to get your go-to-market absolutely bang on, right? And by the time you work out the efficiencies of getting to a B2C, I think it will take some time, right? So unless we understand your specific case a lot more better, I don't think we will be able to probably give you a specific answer for your question. Maybe we can catch up offline some other time.
Right, sure. Yeah.
Aarti, I think you have a question.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I'm actually traveling. Sorry for the background noise. So Anish and Sandeep, my question is like, other than the internal factors of startups, like within our respective startup, what we can control or take responsibility of, what are the external features that actually add value to your entire blitz scaling process? So where Reed counterparts telling having financial institutions which are like taking with a risk element, open to risk element, plays a vital role. So what is your take on the market out there, adding value to a startup's blitz scaling process, market or ecosystem? What are the external factors that you think are important in this process?
Sandeep, yeah.
Yeah, So, Aarti, I mean, especially by the time you reach blitzscaling, I think it's under the assumption that you have reasonable capital to spend with yourself, and almost a lot of times, especially for a company like ours, right? So, if we are relying on equity capital alone for scaling, that's kind of a recipe for disaster. So before we enter blitzscaling stage, we try and figure out alternate capital which can actually fund the growth, and then also try and figure out a way how the business can start paying back the debt or the alternate capital that we've raised. So that's one, right? You need to have robust financial support externally if you're entering blitzscaling, or you should be in a position where you've raised a lot of equity money before entering blitzscaling. And number two, and a lot of times, intelligent partnerships can really get you to scale faster. So these partnerships can be ranging anywhere from tying up with a company which is already dealing with customers that you are trying to acquire, where there's a complementary value addition that you're doing on both ends. Or it can be a partnership as simple as a very good talent recruitment firm, right? So that might be an area where you're lacking in core competence, and you might want to forge a partnership to kind of get good talent and offload that job onto them. So so it can be anything. So I mean, the question obviously I understand is pretty broad, but I think there are these two things are something that we are currently trying to do in order to get our blitzscaling journey kicked off faster.
Good.
Thank you.
This is, I think the next question is from Narayan Tendulkar. Hey, Narayan, I just unmuted you. Can you please ask your question?
Yeah. Hey guys, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. So I just wanted to ask from a product manager's point of view, what would be the best way to contribute in the growth stage? Because by then, the product is stable and you have done the GTM, so it's working, right? And one important part of blitzscaling is obviously getting the tech scaling right, the processes in place. But other than that, what are the ways in which product managers can contribute in this phase?
So I think Narayan, here's what I think about it, right? The half-life of technology today is somewhere close to around 6 to 8 months, right? So which means that in 6 to 8 months, your product is going to be half as relevant, and in around 16 months or a year and a half, the product is going to be only 25% as relevant, right? Hence, you need to keep innovating on your product at twice the speed every 8 months, right? Just to keep ahead of your competition, right? उसके ऊपर आता है आपका innovation scale, right? So to keep yourself relevant itself, you need to keep innovating your product. You need to keep, it could be in the form of adding features, it could be in the form of adding convenience, it could be in the form of whatever, right? But you need to keep innovating at least 2x every 8 months, right? Hence, the product manager's role never becomes obsolete, right? To add to that, now there are a lot of enhancement requests which keep coming from your client, right? I need this, I need that, right? It is not possible. Firstly, is to customize at a client level, unless you have got just 3 or 4 clients, and then you need to work about it. You're a B2B and you're doing 3 or 4 clients, right? But if you're a B2C company, the product manager has to now take a call: is what is the percentage of clients who are willing to pay for this kind of an enhancement, right? Or does it even make sense for me to go in this direction? Right? So one is that product managers need to keep innovating the product to continue to add a exponential value every 8 months, right? And that is where your role becomes absolutely important, right? And it is imperative that you innovate. Otherwise, you're just going to be washed off the market, right? There are a lot of Me Too's out there, right, who want to take the top spot. It is more difficult to maintain the top spot than to retain at the top spot, right? So you slip up on providing that cutting edge innovation, right? You're going to be obsolete. So I think product managers' relevance never goes out of the picture at any point of time.
Right. Thank you.
If anything, I think it is going to challenge you more and more, because if you're already at, getting from 0 to 5 is easier than getting from 9 to 10, right? So
Right.
how do I keep my product together, right? How do I not let many strings pull in different directions, so I lose sight of what my final goal is, right? I need to keep it together and yet provide enough innovation to add value to my client.
Got it. Thank you.
Thanks, Narayan. Next is from Pranav. Once again, hi Pranav, I just unmuted you. Can you please ask your question?
Thanks, Naveen. Good evening. So thanks for that session. Just a question that while we discussed on some of the pitfalls around blitzscaling, where we talk about people and processes and unit economics, just wanted to understand a little bit more from you on what are the other pitfalls to avoid while we focus on blitz scaling as an organization? What are some of the things that we might end up missing, or some of the pitfalls that you might have seen in your experience?
Anish, I guess you would be a better person to take this question.
Yeah. So one of the most common mistakes that one would make, right, is that one is you don't train your team adequately enough, right? While you expect results from them, right, you don't actually train them, or you're setting him up for failure, right? You hire him, you tell him these are your KPIs, go achieve. He says, dude, I've just got into the organization, right? How about training me adequately? How about providing me that domain expertise so that I can go out there and do my job, right? That is, I think, the first thing that you need to focus on, right? When you're blitz scaling, how to empower my team to be able to do their role. The second thing is you need to, at the appropriate time, right, you need to pick up technology as force multipliers for your blitz scaling, right? If you're not going to be using technology to multiply the effect of that one BDM or that one area manager, right, or that ops enablement team or a sales enablement team, right, you need to have that operations enablement team, right? So you have this entire line of structure of sales team that you have, right? But what is going to make it frictionless, right? What is going to act as that hydraulic fluid which keeps all of this entire system going smoothly, right? You have a great incentive plan, but how do you know that the incentive plan is working, or it needs to be tweaked, or how are people gamifying the incentive plan, right? So you need to have that enablement team which keeps that whole thing running, right? So people do not actually think on those aspects, which are business excellence, operational excellence, sales excellence, reducing the friction in your sale, uh, uh, making keeping decision making as simple as possible, right, to ensure that the sales cycles gets compressed, right? You cannot have a sales cycle where the decision making is going to and fro. मैं अपना मैनेजर को पूछूंगा, वो अपना मैनेजर को पूछेगा, खत्म हो गया गेम आप, right? So how do I enforce? So these force multipliers is something that one really needs to focus on when they are blitz scaling, because that is the difference between a 5x and a 10x, right? A person would put X amount of money, he achieves 5x. A person puts X by 2 amount of money but achieves 10x, right? So these excellence teams that you have, automations and excellence teams that you have, those are the guys who will make your difference to you. And it's very important to get the right people at those teams, right? You need to get passionate people, you need to get creative thinkers, you need to get people who take ownership in their job, right? We have people replying at 1 o'clock in the morning. हमें बोलना पड़ता है. So I have this habit of रात को around 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, before I sleep, I just leave tasks for everybody and I go to sleep. So morning, the first thing he opens up, he sees the tasks on his phone, right? Now he's already working under pressure, right? What happens is that guy replies to me at 1 o'clock and gives me an answer, and then you tell him that, bye, go soja, go to sleep, right? So that is the kind of involvement and team members need to have to get you to that 10x.
Sandeep, I believe this question is for you. This is from Sirish. I don't think he's on the call. Probably this. Yeah, I don't think he's on the call. But I have a question. Scaling needs money, and where it comes with its own pressures and oversight, right? How do you handle that? So it's critical, but also there's a lot of oversight when you raise money from external entities.
I mean, Naveen, or Sirish, unless you're a product like, let's say Instagram, Anish was actually pointing it out yesterday, that by the time they reached 10 million users, there were only 15 employees in the company. And I would assume 90% of their cost must be server cost, right? So unless your products like that, where scale up is seamless and you wouldn't need a lot of capital, you would 100% have to raise money to blitz scale, right? Or unless you're a product like Zoho, where it's very core R&D, and then you have really long developmental life cycles. In case of Zoho, almost 15 years before they could really start attaining the kind of pace they have currently. So it's very difficult to imagine a startup scale up rapidly without external capital. And of course, external capital comes with a lot of strings attached to it. And then that's the life of entrepreneurs. Like in our case, our last round was from one of Ant Financial's early stage investment arms. And then during lockdown, the Indian government kind of overnight said, okay, we're not going to let much of capital come from China to India. So our plan was to raise our next round entirely from Ant Financial and their associates. And now we are at a position where we are having to look outside for our next round of funding. So and then there are times when investors kind of push entrepreneurs out of the company when they feel that the company is being mismanaged. So there are a lot of such instances, but also there are hundreds of cases where investors actually help the company scale up and almost guide you, handhold, mentor you in the right direction. And I feel in our case, that's true. And our investors had an immense positive impact on our company, right from the product level to even the sales business development to scale up. So they kind of really force you, though it looks like external pressure, it's pressure that's much needed before you kind of start scaling up and then start spending millions of dollars on scale up, right? So I strongly believe that's an essential part of the Blitzscale journey for at least 90% of the startups.
Got it. Anish, any comments or thoughts on that?
As important as it for investors to find startups, right? It is equally important for startups to find the right investors, right? Like we were pretty lucky, we were very lucky with PVP, Prime Venture Partners. And even today, when Vijay makes a call to Sanjay, either he'd get picked up immediately or 2 minutes later, you get a call back, right? To a great extent, they are our first go-to guys. They are 2 a.m. friends for us, right? Where how do I approach this sort of a thing, right? So, so along with investors, it is not only the money that comes in, right? You get along with them. You get this kind of a support system of people who've seen a few instances happen where they will be able to give you pointers on, okay, if this happens, you need to go in this direction, right? But you look at it from an investor's point of view, right? He's giving you money at absolutely no collateral, right? He would want to have oversight, or he would want to have insight on what is going on. And that is exactly what they want. They want an insight. They want to be assured that things are going fine, things are happening, and you are doing the best that you can do. So all they want to know is that you are doing the best that you can do, right? As long as you're able to convey that to them, right? I think they will be more than able to help you out in sticky situations than otherwise. So I entirely agree with Sandeep, is that a lot of our investors help us to redefine our vision, right? Think bigger, think larger. You can do it. Go get it, sort of a thing, right? And that oversight also keeps you in check, like Sandeep rightly said, right? That oversight that the investors have on you helps you keep your books clean, helps you get into that op trigger. It helps you not to slack off, if I may use the word, right? Not that you would slack off, but it helps you not to slack off. And many of the time when you're preparing your investor deck or the review, you pick up a lot of metrics that you would have otherwise missed, right? You end up looking at things from different directions, right? Which is absolutely a huge value add in your journey of blitzscaling.
Got it.
I hope I've answered the question.
No. I think definitely. I think you only sometimes hear the bad things, but there is a lot of good that happens with external oversight and the funding, and they bring in expertise and a lot of other factors, and that helps the startup and entrepreneurs to grow faster. Thanks for your answer. I think we've almost ran out of time. Thank you, Anish and Sandeep. This is no way a 1 hour topic. I know this takes probably many hours to keep discussing, and each startup journey is different. Each startup learnings are different. And I hope we can really discuss in depth of one of these aspects in the coming sessions. Thanks everyone for joining us. Anish and Sandeep, all the very best, and we hope to see you in the future sessions.
Thank you, Naveen. I think I also had a great experience listening to Anish and learning from him. So As always, thank you, Anish, and thanks, Shankar.
Anytime, man. Thanks, Sandeep. Thanks, Shankar. Thanks, Naveen, for having me on.
Thank you so much. For all the attendees, please do share your feedback. The screen will appear as soon as the webinar ends. Thank you so much. Thanks, Anish. Thanks, Sandeep. Thank you, Naveen. Thank you so much.